Welcome back to the ATI podcast. We're in here for 129. We are 129 episodes in, and I am your host, Barrett Lewis. We've got Jake Jackson, riding co-captain once again from Waxing On, and we are bringing back to the show from episode 76. So it's almost been about 18 months since Wes Hoffman was last on the podcast. How are we doing, Wes?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yeah, it's wonderful, man, to have you on. And we know that you're such a positive guy and do a lot for the scene, so it's a real pleasure to have you on. And I know that you kind of have the same spirit as us. You know, we want to uplift the community and the scene. You've done a lot of awesome work since even the last time we've had you on the show, so we're going to get into some of that.
Thank you.
I know a lot of folks might be tuning in for the first time, so, you know, I never want to take that for granted. And in the event that they didn't catch your last episode with us, just want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience in the event that they've never heard of Wes Hoffman before.
Yeah. So my name is Wes Hoffman from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm here in a beautiful South City basement here. I'm in my girlfriend's house. I'm a singer, songwriter. I have a band, Wes Hoffman and Friends. I also do, I'm sure we'll talk about, I run 314 Punk, which is, I wouldn't call it a company. I wouldn't call it just an Instagram page. I would call it more of like a brand, I guess, that our media outlet that promotes St. Louis music. And then I also have just started over the last, 4 or 5 months, started a booking agency as well. So called Best Life Booking. So yeah, that's me. That's all the music related stuff. I also like pinball, video games, hanging out with my girlfriend, traveling. Yeah, all that good stuff. So
I know you were doing a podcast there for a while.
I'm not doing the podcast anymore. It might make a return at some point. If I do it again, I'm probably just gonna do like one a month. You know what I mean? I was really doing a lot there for a while, and I kind of burnt myself out. And then my band started taking off, and I just didn't have time to do a lot of it. And I mean, as you guys know, podcasts, it's time consuming to do
Absolutely.
the podcast, but then like once you edit it, and I don't do too much editing to podcasts. And I podcasted since like for over the last 10 years. I've had multiple different podcasts. So, but yeah, you do the actual podcast, then you edit it, upload it, and then you market it, and it's like it literally is a full-time thing, so it's if you want to do it right, and you guys definitely are. So I mean,
thank you.
It's if you want to really do it and promote it and push it. And I was doing weekly podcasts, and I was just like, man, I can't keep up with this anymore.
Yeah, that's how we started out too. We had to dial it back a little bit, especially once we took on. We've got 4 different podcasts in our group now.
We try to do the same thing.
Helps.
We just try to do once a month at this point, because my brother, he's got kids, he's got a family, I got a full-time job, so it's kind of hard to get together. So we just plan one time a month where we can, sit and record and talk about some records. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I've scaled it back probably to about 3 a month. We went crazy in October because we always do for Halloween. We always do kind of horror theme episodes, so we had a lot of good time with that.
Yeah.
Back to regular programming now. You're our second guest back on regular programming finally, so we're trying to get back on the bicycle here. Wes, I know that a lot has happened since the last time you've been on the show as well, and I know there's probably many more things you could detail because it's your life, of course, than I can. But I know that something really big that took place, and we've kind of alluded to it previously in conversation before we got on air, is the wonderful work that you've been doing through 314 and the compilation that you did, the 314 Punk compilation, Tough City, Tough Scene. Love the name, by the way.
Great name.
Well, thank you.
Fantastic. I got to know, how did you land on the name?
I actually didn't come up with that. That was Will Massonet, who designed the first 314 Punk t-shirt and the logo. He put that on a t-shirt, and it was like, he didn't even ask me about it. He was like, just put Tough Scene, Tough City, and had this picture of like a black cat, a graphic like black cat on the back. I just kind of like ran with it, and I was like, okay, that's awesome. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't, that was all Will.
Yeah, that's something everybody can get behind. I know.
The hockey merch was cool as well.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
I got if you didn't get one, I have a few more left. I have mediums and XLs left, so let me know.
XL's my size. I'll
XL
take
XL will be a little tight, but we can try to make it work. Motivation to lose some
I
weight.
hear that. So, how did the plan for getting the comp together come together in the selection process? I know that there's
Sure.
probably bands that you wanted to be involved that just couldn't
Yeah.
make it work for this occasion. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Well, we came back from tour in like June, and I don't know what it was. I just kind of came back, and I knew we were going for a week, and I knew that I had some time at home before we were gonna leave again for like, we had like a couple weeks we had like a week in September and a week in October booked as well, and I was like, okay, I've got the rest of June, I've got July, and I've got August. Like, what am I gonna do? We're not really practicing. We kind of take a break in the summer and the winter. My band does. So I was like, I kind of want to have a project, and I had been thinking about doing this comp ever since the beginning of doing 314 Punk. I was like, it would be really cool to put out a comp, and people had asked me about it before, or had mentioned it to me, and I was like, oh no, that's a lot of work. I don't really know if I want to do that. And I just came back and I was like, you know what? I think it's time to do it. Let's go. And if I'm something that I really focus on a lot in my life is like, how can I make an impact
Sure.
on the people around me? Like, nobody is like, I have a job. I'm a corporate recruiter, and I know that I make some kind of difference in people's lives, even if it's minimal in that job, but I don't really feel like that's what I'm going to be remembered for when I'm gone, when I'm not on the earth anymore. I feel like people are more so going to remember, this is how this person helped me, and how he made an impact in the world around me and the people around me. And I was like, let's do a comp. Nobody else is doing anything like this in St. Louis. Let's just go for it. And so I kind of, one Saturday morning, I looked up how much does it cost to get a run of CDs made, which is it's a little bit more than I would expect for the amount that we got done. And again, I wanted to do it right, so I got it mastered, I got it shrink wrapped. I kind of got like some of the things done that, like, you could do it a cheaper way, but I was like, oh no, I think I want to do this like the right way. So I hit up a bunch of bands, like right off the bat, bands that I knew that kind of like, that I had a personal connection with, that I was friends with. Maybe I had booked them before, my band had played with them before, and then, bands that I like. And I was like, I'll ask 20 bands, because I'm sure a few of them, at least 5 of them, will say no, or that they can't do it. And all but 2 of them said no. And It was more of just like, hey, this isn't good timing for us. We have a new album coming out. We don't want to put something old out. So hit us up like next spring, So, but yeah, all the bands got back to me super fast, and they were all really into it. And, I was really excited just to put it out there, and everybody, the reception to it by the general public too, and the people that follow 314 Punk was also really good too. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm on to something here. This is cool. People are into it. And even though I have listened to the CD, but I don't listen to CDs very much. I do have a record player, and every once in a while, if there's a record that I really like, I buy a lot of like the records that our label, that the bands that are on our label puts out, that my band is on. I buy those records and listen to them, because I want to support the label and I support the bands. Only if I like the music. If I'm not really into the band, like, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not going to just buy it. I want to like enjoy the music. So I do buy some records, and like Modern Angst, I pre-ordered their record the day it was available for pre-order.
Yeah,
so good.
Rocks. Yeah,
so good. So
Very
good.
solid.
Yeah, I really liked it. I really like that a lot. So I do buy some physical vinyl. I just pre-ordered a CD today, so I don't really listen to CDs, but I kind of buy them to support the bands. You know what I mean? I don't listen to vinyl that much, but I did listen to the CD in my girlfriend's car. She still has a CD player in her car, so I was like, and dude, I really, all of those songs by all of those bands, I was just like, man, this is a really, really good comp. If I heard this and didn't know any of these bands and was going through it, I would be like, this is awesome. There's something for everybody on there. We had a good mix of like heavy bands, emo bands, pop punk bands, straight punk bands. Like, everything was really well done. So, I'm not patting myself on the back. That's to all the bands that are on it. It was sick.
Yeah, I love the variety that's on there. You have everything from, like you said, from punk to hardcore and emo and everything in between. So those were always my favorite comps back in the day,
Yep.
were the ones with the variety, because that always led to discovery of new artists, maybe something that you wouldn't have listened to before, or a genre that you listen to a lot of, but now you're exposed to it, and it's like, hey, what's that catchy track 7? I need to dive deeper, check these guys out, a live show, whatever the case is. So always
100%.
love the spirit of a comp, for sure.
I always at
100%.
Warped Tour
100%.
grabbed a compilation, and those were a big deal for me growing up. So I'm a big fan of compilations. So definitely love it.
Yeah, I mean, all of the labels back in the day, like Tooth and Nail Records was one of my
Absolutely.
favorite labels back in the
Same.
day, and they had songs from the Penalty Box, volume. I think they were on like volume 10 by the time I don't know if they might even still be doing them, but Vagrant Records had Another Year on the Streets, and those were always, it was always really exciting when those came out, because you were like, oh man, I get to hear a new song from every band on the label. And every once in a while, maybe they'd throw in a band that wasn't on there that was kind of cool. And I mean, like Atticus Dragging the Lake was another cool one. Kung Fu Records put one out that had like the Ataris and Useless ID. And yeah, you're exactly. I found out about MXPX on a Christian music sampler, like back in like 1994 or something like that, and that was one of my favorite. They're one of my favorite bands still to
Same
this
here.
day. So
This guy too.
Love them.
He loves them as well.
Love MXPX.
Yeah, so I knew that listening to the previous episode, you talked about MXPX. Was like, well, I'm also an MXPX fan, so I'll wear the MXPX hat for Wes. But yeah, I love that band.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. I was going to show you, I actually have some records here. See, I was talking about buying music from bands that I like. I have.
Well, and the label that you're on.
Love it.
Yeah, and then this is the new MXPX.
You got that right, Jay?
Yes, it was one of my favorites of last year.
This was really cool. We found this in Philadelphia, where our label Jumpstart Records is based. This is MXPX Plans Within Plans.
Love it.
And this is one of the coolest things for me is it has the Jumpstart Records logo on it.
Nice.
And then ours, because Jumpstart put it out, and then of course ours has the Jumpstart Records logo on it too. So just almost the fact that it was almost kind of surreal when our bass player found that at a record store in Philadelphia, and he showed it to me, and I was like, I have to buy that. And I was like, dude, how odd is it that like that's one of my favorite bands, and we have the same logo on the back. It sounds really silly. It might sound really dumb, but like that, like. When I was standing there in the record store in Philadelphia and like looking at that, it kind of blew my mind for a minute. So
I would have the exact same
feel the same way.
Yeah, if I was like ever to see something of mine on like Death Wish Inc. or something, I'd be like, holy hell, that's a dream come true right there. So I get it 100%. As far as the artists that are on the comp, I know that you said that you had great success in actually recruiting folks for that. Just outside of just like the selection process that you mentioned, I know that there was probably an intent to have that variety for the reasons that we talked about earlier as well, just to kind of showcase everything that was going on in St. Louis.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely wanted to have like a mix of, I mean, eventually we might do something that's like, hey, here is a straight up hardcore comp. Here's a straight up punk comp. Ska is really big. It's like having a revival right now. You know what I mean? It's having another
love that band.
Yeah, Rumluck, Hot Rails. Like the Scotatonics are another big one that I. You
guys just opened for Mustard Plug, right?
Mad Caddies.
Mad Caddies. I don't know why Mad Caddies. My bad.
Yeah, Mad Caddies. Well, one of the guys actually, Iron Roses, played that show too, and one of the guys in Iron Roses is also in Mustard Plug. So
okay.
So you're not far off. But yeah, Ska's having a big revival. So maybe we would do something like that eventually and kind of segment it off. But yeah, I definitely wanted to have like a mix of heavy and melodic and and emo too. We have a really big like decent amount of like Midwest emo bands here. Young Animals, Wise Disguise, Inches from Glory. We have some really cool emo bands here. Those three are all on the comp. I feel like there's one more. Silver Material is an awesome one that's on. They're going to be on the next comp that's coming out. So yeah, there's definitely a really cool. We just have so much going on here in St. Louis, and I really wanted to kind of, in the same way that 314 Punk, the spirit of it is to bring all of this together and have a centralized place where you can find anything that's happening in punk in St. Louis. I wanted the comp to kind of be that, so.
Sure. And I think that's why we connected initially as well, Wes, because I noticed a lot of work that you were doing through for punk, and some of the bands that are putting on the map and putting St. Louis on the spot. That's in part kind of the mission of our show, ATI Podcast, as well. So a lot of kinship there.
Absolutely.
Actually creating a platform for people to be known. I mean, yes, we talk to other artists. You obviously tour and work with other artists yourself as well, Wes, internationally. But it's to actually put St. Louis on that same platform as everybody else, because we do have people as equally talented that just need the spotlight and the opportunity.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I think that there's bands that, and now we're seeing a lot of bands from here tour more, even if it's just, we're playing in Chicago, we're doing a one-off show in Chicago, or we're doing a Carbondale and Memphis or Cape Girardeau. Even if you're just I love playing Cape Girardeau, by the way. I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys are from near there, right?
We're actually closer to St. Louis. We're an hour south, but we're very familiar with Cape Girardeau as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some of us have lived down there briefly and so on. So yeah,
dude, they have a great scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you never hooked up with the dudes at Spectrum Record Lounge, I think you would hit it off with them. And I'm sure that they would host you guys at some point to play a show there and sell some records. I guarantee
Absolutely.
it.
Oh, dude,
I saw Fister, the St. Louis band Fister there. I saw them at Spectrum Record Lounge in Cape, and that was awesome.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
I just hooked him up with Brennan from Squint, and I think Squint's going to probably do something down there before long.
Oh, hell yeah.
As well, so expect that in a few months.
I mean, that kind of stuff is playing in a place like Cape Girardeau that's like an hour and 45 minutes away. Carbondale is 2 hours away. Champaign is like 3. But there's Springfield, Illinois. There's a huge scene up in Springfield,
Dumb
Illinois.
Records.
Dumb Records is like, and I think just kind of branching out beyond St. Louis I'm seeing a lot more bands do that, and we're helping a lot of bands do that. And I think that's really where, I was just talking about this on another podcast, about how like 20 years ago, everybody was like, oh, you're not going to need to flyer at shows. You're not going to need to put up posters because you have the internet, and the internet's like how everybody gets their news now. And like, that's true. But now the internet has gotten so saturated and there is so much noise that it's hard to cut through that like things like touring, the grassroots movement, touring, flyering, putting up posters, getting your stuff on the radio, all of that is still, it has now almost come full circle to where like that is the way that to reach people now. I was just at the microwave Ben Quad show last week, and I brought 200 flyers. I gave out every single one, and every single person, I don't want to say every single person, but I would say 80% of the people that got a flyer from me for our show stood there and looked at it for at least 2 seconds. You know what I mean? So they at least read the names, they read what it was. Maybe they threw it away when like on the way to their car or whatever, but it's like, that's at least a way to get in front of people that might not know your band. Like, yeah, you have to stand outside in the cold, and that's not fun, but like, that's a way that people will literally stand there and see your name. And then maybe they get in their car and they hear the show promoted on the radio, and they're like, oh shit, I just heard about that. Like, that dude just gave me a flyer. Who is this dude? I need to look him up. So
absolutely,
those ways are still, and touring is, that's what I'm getting at, is like, that is such a big part of it is, and you don't have to tour for weeks and weeks at a time in a row. You can go do 3 dates and not really have to take time off work, work it in on a holiday, or you can go do a Friday night in Carbondale and a Saturday night somewhere else and come home on Sunday. You can really work those things in. So
yeah, you kind of danced across this point earlier too, and the fact is, like, the word of mouth in the music scene is so helpful. Whenever and I know you're a guy who does this because this is some of the knowledge that you dropped on our audience the last time you were on here, Wes, was that you actually talk to people from the area and you get your information from people in the area and what bands to put on shows, who turns out for shows, having that connection and building that network, and you being able to pass that along to a friend that's like, hey, Wes, I saw you just play Paducah, Kentucky. Like, give me some references. What's a good place for us to turn out? And you think we would get a good crowd? What's a band maybe that you would recommend? So those are all invaluable things too, to still build that human connection, those interpersonal communication skills, and that network, when you're out playing too.
100%. Because I mean, when this actually just happened like 2 weeks ago, I'm booking a show in Detroit for a band, and I reached out to my friends in Detroit, Middle Out. They're actually on the same label that Modern Angst just put their record out on, Punkerton Records. So shout out Punkerton, shout out Modern Angst. But I reached out to them and I was like, hey, would you guys play this show? And they were like, Yeah, we might be able to do that. They were like, just so you know, though, like this is a good venue, but it's in this part of town, and people don't really like to go there, and unless the lineup is really good, and this other venue is in a better part of town, you'll get more foot traffic that way, and all of that kind of stuff is I don't know because I'm not from Detroit.
Yeah,
I've
right.
only been there like twice in my life. I don't know what the scene is like, and it would be the same thing as like if I was telling somebody about the scene here, and I was like, hey, well, there's the Sinkhole, and it's kind of in a weird part of town where there's not much around there, but it's a good venue, and people will come out there. But you do need to get the word out about it and get some good locals on the bill, and then Platypus is in like a better area where you might get some foot traffic. You'll get some people walking by or people that like to go eat at the gramophone before then. And then you'll get a drink afterwards, and then you have like the Heavy Anchor, which is, a 21 and up dive bar in South City, which is like kind of more of a blue collar area. And if your band's more of a 21 and up type band, so it's just getting that same information about every city. And I may have said this on the first one, is that it takes multiple times of going there to a city to understand that and to make a connection with a band. It's like Nashville's a perfect example of like we went, and the first time we played this place called The End, and
Love that
the second,
venue.
oh yeah, The End is great. The End is
I
great.
saw 4 Years Strong and Can't Swim there for the Rise or Die Trying 10-year anniversary tour in
Oh, hell yeah.
2017.
Hell yeah. The
Yep.
End is sick, man. The End, it's really sick. But my friend from Nashville just told me that they're not doing like a lot of local shows anymore. They're doing more shows like you mentioned, like bigger bands, so it's harder to get in there. And then there's a smaller venue called Springwater that they do a lot of punk shows, and it's kind of easier to book there, but it's harder to get people out. And then so that when we played Springwater, my friend Nathan was in a band called the Catastrophes. He was like, dude, I want to get you in at Cobra. He's like, that's where all the punks hang out. You'll get a good crowd. That they kind of have a little bit of a built-in crowd. There's always people there hanging out drinking, so like it's easy to get them to pay $10 and go to the other side of the venue. And so the next time we played Cobra, and it was a sick show, you know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to meet that person or that band or kind of get that knowledge by just talking to people to kind of know, oh, hey, next time we come back through here, let's try this. Or next time we played some city, and it was out in the suburbs of the city, and as we were driving away, I was like, next time let's get a show in the city proper. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right. Yeah.
maybe that'll do a little bit better. So yeah, this
Suburb
is all
shows
the
are
kind of
definitely a gamble sometimes, without
oh,
question.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be the best. Sometimes
Sure.
they can be really good, but
I've had it go both ways. Yeah.
But this is all the kind of stuff that, as I got better at, like, I've always been a good networker. I've been a recruiter, and I've been in sales, and like that, it's always kind of been my job to network and know people and kind of get information. But I am just as passionate about this kind of stuff, like the business side. I don't even want to call it like the business side, but the
logistics
growing
of it.
the logistics of it and the growing of the band as I am the actual music.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
just as excited about this kind of stuff. I think the more that I got interested in, like, how can I figure this out? The more that I got interested in the logistics and like touring and trying to make the thing grow, the better our band started to do. So the more we started to grow. So I think a lot of people just focus on the music, and the music has to be good. Don't get me wrong, but like, I spend a lot of time writing songs, spend a lot of time practicing and playing guitar and learning new things. But I mean, this is a skill that's extremely valuable if you want to like
Absolutely.
really move the needle for your band, I think.
I agree. And speaking of moving the needle for your band, we got to talk about Wes Hoffman and Friends more explicitly, because you guys put out a new record this year.
Yep.
Back in February.
We did.
10 tracks, 31 minutes. Let's talk about it.
We did. It's
How
called
It
How It
Should
Should Be. I actually have a copy here. This is the here. I won't show you that one. Is your podcast? Is this like gonna be on YouTube too? Or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Look it up on
Absolutely.
YouTube.
Yep.
We got.
So this is it. I'll show you for you, Jake. This is a Coke. This is a special. This was the Canadian version.
Whoa, there we
It's
go.
the Coke bottle clear.
That's
cool.
sweet.
Yeah. So
That's slick.
I always love the Coke bottle clear ones. They're great.
Yeah, that was only available in Canada. So, well, I mean, you could get it shipped here from Canada if you wanted to, but yeah. So we just put out that album. It's coming up on a year in February. So it's only been out for like 10 months. Yeah, and I mean, some of these songs were written in like 2021. So
Yeah, I was
they're
going to say
pretty,
I recall
yeah.
some of the singles being out previously, like in 2022, and
Yeah,
so
yeah, definitely. The first single came out in August of 2022. So some of these songs have been around for a while, but that's kind of the process of like, once we finished the record and we had a label commit to wanting to put it out, it was then, almost a year after that it finally came out. Part of that was just like, working it into the label's release schedule. And then, they switched to digital distributing companies. And then like the vinyl got delayed a little bit. So it got delayed by like a month. So, which happens when you put out vinyl.
right.
It's very different
Yeah,
than a CD.
yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
So yeah, we've been playing the songs off of that for a little while, and we never really got to do. We did a show last year around this time at the Duck Room, which I love the Duck Room.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely, great venue, great room,
Tons of history.
tons of history. Absolutely, I love that place. And I thought we were gonna have vinyl for that show, but we did not. And so I kind of was like, well, we really never had like a proper, like, as soon as I thought it was going to be released around November of last year. It ended up getting to be February of this year. So it was delayed, like the release was delayed like 2 or 3 months. So I was like, as soon as the new year hit, we started touring because we thought the album was going to be out. So I had all
Right,
these like
right.
tour dates booked. So we never really got to do like a proper, hey, this is our album release show. So our show that was coming up next Friday at Red Flag, we're going to play the album from front to back, maybe with a few surprise covers mixed in, and then we're going to play a couple hits from the EP. But yeah, we're gonna play the whole thing, and we're going to have the record there. We're going to have all kinds of different variants of it: pink, blue, black. We won't have any of these are still in Canada, so those are staying in Canada for the time being. But yeah, dude, it was honestly so nice to actually have it out, and it's been so nice to have vinyl on our merch table. To have that kind of like that centerpiece that's like, hey, this is our album. Not everybody collects vinyl, but it's weird because a lot of people come up to us and be like, hey, you got this on CD? And we're like, oh, but
Right.
we just have vinyl and we have tapes of our EP. But it's really nice to have a physical piece of media like that. And
Absolutely.
again,
Definitely.
going back to the Jumpstart Records MXPX thing, like even to just be a part of that label and like their history was like, it's such a cool thing to me. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things that will kind of like, I talked earlier about having an impact. And like, it's one of those things that will kind of, the album will eventually go away, the copies of the album and stuff and everything, but it's like something that's like, I felt like I made a tiny little dent in history, you know what I mean, by putting that out. That definitely, yeah, I mean, still, even to just sometimes I just still get it out and look at it, and sometimes I still just listen to it on vinyl, and I do listen to her songs like quite a bit.
As you should.
Yeah, I mean, I make music that I would like and that I want to
Yeah.
listen
Right.
to. I've listened to our stuff so many times now that it doesn't really have the same punch that it does whenever it's like
Right. Of course.
first released.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say every couple weeks I listen to the album all the way through, and I think it almost helps me as a musician knowing that I'm going to play these songs, like kind of just have that
Definitely.
jammed into your subconscious. But
I don't
yeah,
know if you had any instances in the songwriting of this album where maybe some of the songs were newer and maybe it's helpful for you to actually hear those over and over again because maybe they kind of like you were wrapping up writing as you were recording some of them. Was that the instance with anything on this record?
not so much with this one. I'm in the process of like, we're actually going in this weekend to finish up album number 2. So,
You crazy man, look at you. Man,
so there's
The grind never
definitely,
stops.
yeah, this guy's got like 10 irons in the fire. That's why I'm
yeah.
always impressed to talk to you.
I mean, you're absolutely right though. Like the grind never stops. I actually had, yeah. I mean, like I said, some of these songs were written in 2022, and I'm always writing. I'm not like, okay, well, this album's written. Like now, I won't write for a while. I feel like you get better at writing by writing more and more and more.
Absolutely.
I've probably written at least one. At one point, I had an album that will never see the light of day that was completely written, like probably 12 songs. Actually, it was probably more like 17 or 18 songs, but 12 songs that I put together in my Dropbox that will never probably be an album or anything like that. That was intended to be like the second album, But then I kept writing more and more stuff, and it got better. And so, that those were just like pushed to the sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some songs now where I'm like, a song that I had the album that we're working on now. We have 4 more songs to do, and I had the last 4 kind of solidified, and then I wrote 2 more, and I was like, this one has to be on it. Me and our bass player Jacob, we call him Bayjock. So Bayjock and I were listening to all the songs, and he was like, dude, you gotta put this one on there. And then, a few weeks later, I wrote another one that I was like, this one is really good, man. I really think this is like a flagship style song, and that that people would listen to and be like, that's a Wes Hoffman song. And so that's definitely the case with this new one that's coming out, where it's like, okay, I literally wrote one of these just like a month ago, and now we're going to record it, which is also kind of scary because I'm very methodical and very strategic, and I'm kind of like, okay, these are the songs that we're going to do. So to throw one in there last minute was kind of a little scary, but I feel so good about it that I'm like,
that's good.
Dude, it has to go on there.
Put it on there.
Well, I know you're really good about writing tunes that are, anthemic and, some narrative driven lyrics, things that are meaningful. We talked about the PMA that you implement into your music sometimes. So if folks haven't checked out any of Wes's music, these are things that you're going to definitely find whenever you turn on a Wes Hoffman and Friends album.
Yep. I can't agree more. And my personal favorite from the record is A Second Too Soon. That's been my favorite. Yeah.
Thank you,
I love
man.
that one.
Dude, I love that one too. I wrote that about my girlfriend. She's upstairs right now, watching something on TV. But no, that was it.
Shouts out, girlfriend.
That's one of my favorites too, man. I think that's honestly it's become one of our favorites to play live too. I don't know if you guys have seen us play live before, but like when that one ends, it's like it makes this, because it ends we all end at the same time, and it sucks the sound out of the room. It's like, and usually at the end of that, everybody's like, they're not expecting it to end so abruptly like that. And people are usually like, cheer. They're like, oh, holy shit, so.
Yeah. It's like a bomb going off in the room.
Yeah. It's definitely one of our favorites to play live for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Awesome.
I love to hear it. Well, I know that you guys probably have a lot of things in the works as far as, in promotion of the album. You've already mentioned some of the shows that you played this year earlier, but I know you got the big show coming up that you alluded to earlier, November 22nd, right, Wes, at Red Flag?
Yes.
Let's talk about who's all on the bill and
sure.
prices and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. So I really wanted to have, at our last show, we had an out-of-town band. So it was us, The Disappeared, Stay the Course from Wichita, Kansas, and Uncanny Valley. And my whole kind of point to doing these shows, we've done a big show in November every year for the last 3 years, and I like to have an out-of-town band, kind of a veteran band of the scene, and then an up-and-coming band. So this year we have the Winks, which is they're from St. Louis. They're kind of like a rock and roll power pop kind of I wouldn't say jam bandy. They're almost kind of like classic rock sometimes, but they got that punk flair too. They kind of remind me of the Replacements or
Hell yeah,
or the Kinks.
Yeah. I think of power pop. I think of like the Cars.
Well, the Cars.
Or
definitely.
Cheap Trick, stuff like that.
Definitely, 100%. That's right up their alley. Their lead singer Dylan Dunnigan. He's a good friend of mine. He's like part of the Encapsulated Studios crew where I'm based out of. I've had a lot of really long conversations with him. He's a great songwriter, really cool dude. And then we have When the Sun Sets from Chicago, which I'm good friends with them. I have booked them in St. Louis a couple of times, and I've been out to see them play, and became kind of good friends with their bass player, Rob, over some beers at one of their shows here. We kind of just hung out and kind of hit it off, and I like their music. They're kind of a newer pop punk band. They kind of remind me a little bit of like A Day to Remember, or maybe a little bit of 4 Year Strong. They have some breakdowns.
The easy chord.
Yeah, a little bit of easy core for sure. And then and they're from Chicago, so they're good friends. I love Chicago. Chicago's a huge pop punk city. Every time we've played in Chicago, we do really well up there. I tried to get my friends in Bad Planning down. They're on our label, Jumpstart Records. So I've tried to get them to come down, but they had some scheduling conflicts and just couldn't do it. So When the Sun Sets, and then a band from the Illinois side called Wayside. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them.
No, I'm not actually.
No.
They kind of remind me sometimes of Hot Mulligan.
Okay.
The story so far, they've got kind of
Love
a
it.
little bit of that jangly emo sound. They've also got some of the they've got Knuckle Puck. There's kind of a little bit like Knuckle Puck.
Okay, hell yeah.
They've got kind of that dreary, melancholy, like emo pop punk sound. And we have played a bunch of shows with them. Actually, both times that we played in Carbondale that we've played with them, we're getting ready to do like a little 2-day thing with them in April next year. So yeah, they've become good friends. We all really like their music, and they're really fun guys. So yeah, and we all will smoke weed with them at the show. So.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Now you're talking my language. Now we're talking. Well, I'm definitely going to be checking out Wayside. Wayside I wasn't familiar with, so that excites me. I'll definitely be checking them out.
Yeah, sure. Definitely check them out. They're good.
So I think $15 is GA for the show. I think they do the.
Yes.
We got some balcony seating, reserve seating available as well for the show.
Yes, and I have been preaching this for a while. Get tickets in advance. It's a little bit cheaper, but it also on the business side, like it lets us know, hey, if you plan on coming to the show, like as a promoter and as an artist, like you want to see, oh, hey, we've got 50 tickets sold to the show. It's going to do really well, you know. What's happened to us a bunch of times now, and I think this is just the culture in St. Louis, is you know, tickets trickle in at the very beginning, and then the week of the show, like they trickle in a little bit more, and then the day before the show, a bunch come in, and then like the day of the show, more come in, and then by the time the show rolls around, you have a great turnout. But it's like I would really love to see those numbers like way up front. Yeah. You know, because we're promoting, we're pushing. We want people to come out. We want to know that people are there. It's encouraging us to see people like buying tickets. And you know, just yesterday somebody like shared a screenshot that said like, you know, you've got tickets to Wes Hoffman and Friends. So you know, people have been telling me, I didn't mention this, but we've teamed up with 105.7 The Point, the big radio station here in town, and they have sponsored the show. So it's being announced on the radio as well. So people have been texting me and saying like, oh hey dude, I just heard about your show on the radio. And I'm like,
hell yeah,
nice,
cool. Did you get tickets?
Now come. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so and that's really cool too. I mean, I grew up, I'm very thankful. I want to give a big shout out to the 105.7 The Point for helping us out with this one, because especially Donny Fandango, who has become a good friend of our band. And I don't think if it wasn't for him, you know, radio has just changed in general now. It's not like how it was 20 years ago, where you could kind of send an email to The Point and then every Sunday night they would play, you know,
right on the Sunday night showcase.
Like, yeah. It's like, you know, there's advertisements and sponsorships and all these, you know, rules, and you know, it is a business just like anything else, and it's not like how it was. You know, Donny has really kind of still carrying a torch for bands that are based in St. Louis and playing their music when he can, you know, and he's been doing this for a really long time. So, you know, he works in, he's played our band a bunch. He's been generous enough to have us on the air in studio.
Love it.
He plays bands like Number One Sons and Fight Back Mountain. And you know, it's really cool to see him kind of throwing those bands into, you know, his New Music Sunday and stuff like that. So big shout out Donny Fandango.
Hell yeah. I'd love to hear that. Yeah. The Point is, anybody who kind of lives in our given area that grew up with terrestrial radio is definitely an important station. So I love to hear that they're working with
playing
Kindred
local
Spirit
bands
right here and still playing local bands and promoting those artists for sure.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's beautiful. Well, folks, we're going to have links in the episode details, of course, on ticket information. We're going to have links in the episode details on the 314 Punk Comp, which if you've been watching our stuff, you should already know about it from Waxing On.
Yep. These
fellows have been talking about it on Waxing On and R&J.
Yes, sir.
And we'll, of course, have information on Wes Hoffman's How It Should Be as well. But you should be at their show.
Yes, 22nd.
November 20th.
Come to the show.
It's Red Flag.
I unfortunately am in a wedding on the 22nd, so I cannot make it. But I will be there in spirit.
Could you ask him to move the wedding?
Yes, move the wedding to the show.
I'm kidding.
I've never been to a wedding on a Friday, so this is new to me. So I've never heard of a wedding being on a Friday.
I haven't been to too many Friday weddings either, I don't think. Interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to be there, but next year, whenever you guys book a show, I will be there for sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Wes, we thank you so much for your time this week, folks. Be sure to check out Wes Hoffman and Friends. They are putting St. Louis punk on the map. And Wes, thank you once again for all the work that you do for St. Louis.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you guys as well.
Yes.
I mean, doing what you guys do is just, I love it. I love it. I think it's awesome. And, like you said, there's definitely some kinship here, and we're trying to do the same things by like uplifting music that's based in St. Louis. And I really, I appreciate you guys doing what you do. And I think there needs to be more people out there kind of, if you're not a musician, if you're not an artist, it's really cool to see people out there doing things that, aren't necessarily music, and they're finding ways to be creative like you guys are with this podcast. There's a zine that's going to be at our show called No Matter the Time. And it's these two people that put together these like paper zines, and they like draw and they put pictures of your band and like
that's awesome.
Do lyrics and stuff and it's dope as shit, and it's awesome. And I feel like that's the spirit of punk to me is
Definitely.
like, finding a way to use your creativity to, uplift other people. So you guys are doing just that. And I really, really appreciate you squeezing me in before this show to help kind of get the word out and talk about our album and what we're doing with 314 Funk. So thank you guys for what you're doing and
Thank
doing.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
man, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for the kind words. And, anything we can ever do to help you, we're always here for you.
Nope. Like when
Absolutely.
Rancid says, when I got the music, I got a place to go.
Damn right, baby.
Yeah.
Hey there, this is Barrett from the ATI Podcast here to talk about what we have going on the ATI Podcast Network. First, we'll start with Waxing On with R and J. The format of Waxing On with R and J is audible selections made exclusively by our hosts and brothers, Ridge Jackson and Jake Jackson. Waxing On with R and J is sure to tickle your inner eardrums with some of the most vile tones you've ever encountered, and conversely, ear candy with pop melodies, focusing on spotlighting underground and rising artists. Waxing On with R&J is another outlet of the ATI podcast community to bring awareness to many musicians' craft. Also found on the ATI Podcast Network, Nod Narb's Closet, hosted by Brandon Stewart of Edos Inn. Nod Narb's Closet is a wing of the ATI podcast programming that delves into the world of role-play games, miniature painting, diorama making, occasional pro wrestling match watch-alongs, providing commentary with a dash of jocularity and satire, and much, much more. Of course, leading the pack is the ATI podcast. On the ATI podcast, we episodically invite guests onto our show to spotlight their talents, whether that's musicians, filmmakers, artists, actors, businesses, even athletes. Nothing is off the table. The focus of the ATI podcast and its collective creative arms, whether that's waxing on with R&J or Nard's Closet, is to bring awareness and focus to people's talents. Be sure to follow us across all traditional podcasting platforms, and for the full experience, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search the ATI podcast. Stay safe out there.